Hey, Chris Schuler here with Dealer Direct Transmission and Automotive Repair located in Orlando, Florida. Check us out online at www.dealerdirecttrans.com or give me a call at 321-662-0117. So today I'm going to be talking to you about maintenance on your car. There's certain things that need to be done to a car to make the life of the car last long. First thing is oil changes. Oil changes typically should be done about every 3,000 miles, unless you use a full synthetic fluid. When you use full synthetic fluid, you can get away with doing an oil change every 6,000 or 7,000 miles. There's one other unless, and that's AMSOIL, or a product like AMSOIL. You can even get away with doing oil changes, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 miles apart. Another thing that's really important as far as fluids is flushing the coolant, or having a coolant flush done before cold weather. It's October now, probably a good time for you to start thinking about having a coolant flush done. This will kind of keep the car from the motor locking up in colder weather. So it's really important that you have the proper kind of antifreeze and the proper amount of antifreeze in the car system, especially when cooler weather starts coming around. Next thing I want to talk to you about is transmission servicing. You need to change your transmission fluid about every 30,000 miles. You want to keep that going every 30,000 miles unless you have a transmission problem. You don't want to change the transmission fluid if you have feelings of the transmission slipping or hesitating. Servicing the transmission with a transmission problem can actually accelerate an existing problem and make the problem worse. Remember, servicing the car is preventive maintenance. It's not going to take care of a problem. There's some services that you don't need. I've had customers call me and say, hey Chris, I've got my car at an oil change place and they're trying to sell me a fuel injection cleaning and a fuel service, and those are just two things that you don't need at all. Those are just things that they use to pad their bill. So if anybody recommends that you need an injection service or a fuel cleaning service, pass on that one. Save you some money. A couple of things that you can do at home to save yourself some money. Instead of paying somebody to replace your air filter, go buy an air filter from a parts store. It's very simple to change. It's usually on the firewall driver's side of the car. You just simply remove this cover and the filter comes right out. Just get a new filter, insert it, put it back in. You're done. Air filter is very important to keep this thing clean. The car will run better and last longer. Another thing that you can do is inspect your battery terminals. Make sure there's no corrosion. If there's some corrosion on the battery terminals, take a can of Coca-Cola and pour it on the terminals. Just get a little wire brush and scrub it. Keep those terminals nice and clean. If you see any signs of acid buildup on top of the terminals, that could be a sign of your battery going bad. You might want to have your battery checked and get it replaced. Very simple to check your oil. On most cars, the oil dipstick's the front of the engine. The car needs to be off, and just simply pull it out. The oil should be between the full mark and the empty mark. If it's not between those marks, then you need to add a quart at a time or half a quart at a time. If you need to add the oil, usually the place where you add oil is right on top of the motor. It should have a sign on the cap indicating an oil can. So that'll help you remember that's for the oil. You can simply just remove this oil cap, use a funnel so you don't get oil all over your engine, and pour oil right into the reservoir there. This reservoir here is for your power steering fluid. Again, you can check that with your car not running. Just simply pull it out and look. There's an indication here that will tell you if it's full or if it's empty or if it's low. If it's low or empty, you need to add the proper amount of fluid. And make sure that you secure the cap down tightly, as you don't want fluid leaking all over your car. Of course, this is the reservoir for your overflow tank for your coolant. Make sure that you don't see any kind of residual coolant around the area. That could be a sign that it's leaking. You might want to have that taken care of if it is. Last but not least, on most cars, back in the back by the firewall, could be on the driver's side or passenger side, depending on what kind of car, is the transmission fluid dipstick. The car needs to be running and in park to check this. Simply reach back, and again, it's kind of like checking your oil. The car needs to be running. Just pull it out. The fluid should be a nice pink, clear color. Make sure it's full of fluid. If it's low on fluid, that means that you've got a leak. you need to add fluid, you need to take it into a repair shop so they can find out where it's leaking from. You don't want to run a transmission low on fluid. Simply, if you need to add fluid, where you pull this thing out of is the little filler tube that the dipstick goes down into. Again, take a long funnel, put the funnel down into the filler tube, and add about a half a quart at a time until it's at the proper level. And make sure that you get the dipstick all the way back down in there. Something else that you can look for yourself is you can inspect your radiator hoses. Just kind of make sure the car is cool. Just kind of squeeze them. They should be soft and supple. Inspect them for leaks. Make sure there's no coolant leaks. But if they're hard and dry, that's a sign that the hoses are wearing out. And that could be a bad thing. If you had a hose break, you lose all your coolant, possibly burn your motor up. So make sure you inspect your hoses every once in a while when you've got the hood up, checking the oil and the other things. As far as tuning up your car, on older cars you'll see that you have plug wires, a cap and a rotor on most cars. On older cars you change the plugs, the plug wires, the cap and rotor. I would also recommend that when you're replacing those components that you want to use OEM parts. For instance, if you have a Ford, you want to try to use Motorcraft parts, or if you have a GMC, you want to try to use AC Delco. A lot of the times when you buy cheap aftermarket parts, say from overseas, China, the parts just don't perform as good or last as long as the parts that are actually made for the car. On later model cars, kind of hard to do a tune-up. You don't really have plugs and wires and that type of thing. As you can see, each cylinder has their own coil pack. On this one, it happens to be 8 of them. This is a Saleen Mustang. What will happen is if there's some sort of problem, usually what will happen is the check engine light will come on. What you'll need to do then is to have the car checked by a certified mechanic that has a real scan tool that will bring up the codes and not only tell the mechanic what the codes are, but he should also be able to make the proper service recommendation to you to either repair the problem or service the problem. A lot of people think that you have to take your car back to the dealership for routine maintenance. Simply not the case. Most independent repair shops can do all of the certified maintenance that your car is required, and plus probably save you a pretty penny. Here at Dealer Direct, we do it all, from A to Z, servicing to repairs. We tow cars for free when they're broken down. We never charge to check a car and diagnose the problem and give you an estimate. So if you need an oil change, an engine or transmission service, or any kind of major repair, brakes, what have you, give us a shot to earn your business. You can go to my website. You can click on Get a Quote. Give me the year, make, and model of your car, and I can actually email you a list of services that are due on your car. Or you can feel free to give me a call, 321-662-0117. Again, Chris with DealerDirectTrans.com.